All right, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today for the first episode of Mile 99 interview series. The whole point of this interview series is to stay connected with our running community. Our goal is to share knowledge and information as if we were on the trails with a runner. So hopefully we can translate that message over to you guys. And today we are here with Craig Thornley, who is the race director for Western States 100. It's also a local runner and a local member of the community. And my co-host, Greg Larkin. Craig?
Hey, everybody. I'm Greg Larkin. I'm co-hosting this interview series with Paulo. Broadcasting live from Auburn, California. Paulo's down at the aid station in downtown, hey, Jessica, downtown Auburn. And so we wanted to put this interview session together, as it was mentioned, to just really kind of foster the idea of community. And I got to give the credit. We've got a man behind the scenes, my best friend, Mike Turner. We spend a lot of time on the trails, and we were discussing this a couple of weeks ago, and he had the idea, like, why don't you, instead of just a virtual hangout every week, start thinking about putting together a little interview series. We're missing a lot of that trail time together. We get a lot of valuable information when we're out with our fellow runners, finding out about races they may have done or they're interested in, or different things they're doing for training or nutrition or whatever. And we really just want to use this time to hang out with some people every week and find out what makes them tick, and hopefully get a little information along the way that's useful to you. I know we have a lot of new ultra runners in the community, and they're kind of thirsty for information. And right now it's really hard to get that, even though the races are suspended for now, it's going to be valuable for them in the future. So we want to kind of foster that as much as we can. So we have Mike, as I mentioned, kind of behind the scenes, and what he's doing right now is he's monitoring the Zoom chat window. You have access to that. We're also broadcasting on Facebook Live, and so he's kind of keeping an eye on the chat window as well as Facebook Live for comments. And what we're going to do as we're talking to Craig is, obviously we've got questions that Paulo and I are going to ask him, but then at the end, we're going to have a live Q&A session. So feel free to send some messages to Mike Turner. He would be in the chat drop-down window. And make sure that if you have a question, send it over to him, or you can also post a comment on the Facebook page if that's more convenient for some reason. But since you're in the Zoom session, the chat window is probably going to work the best for you. Okay, so Paulo, do you want to introduce Craig, or would you like me to?
No, go ahead. Thank you, Greg. Well, Craig, as I mentioned, is a local runner and also the race director for Western States 100. Craig is a native of Cool, is a longtime runner, is an accomplished competitor, does a lot of trail work. He's definitely someone who is embedded and very active in the community. He's a rock climber, mountain biker, he's a ski patroller, amongst many other things, right? So welcome, Craig, and thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks, Paolo, and thanks, Greg. I'm glad you guys started this up, and I'm honored to be the first interviewed person. So
excellent. Do you mind if I also say that most importantly, you're a cat lover?
I am a cat lover. She was just here. We're down to one cat. Unfortunately, yeah. we lost a second one in 2 years, so we're down to one.
Yeah.
But we live vicariously through your cats, and hopefully we're going to see.
Hey, they may make an appearance here at some point. We're pretty raw. We're pretty informal. So if the cat photo bombs us, that's all good, right?
Heck yeah, good.
Excellent. Okay. Well, so I guess Paulo kind of read off quite a list of things, and as he said, I mean, you're really embedded in the community. I mean, not just as a race director, but just for all the different types of things you do and different activities you participate in. And so, I was writing up some questions last night, and I guess, the first thing that kind of came to my mind across all those different disciplines, over, years of running and, ski patrolling and mountain biking, rock climbing, all these different things. Like, what's one thing you would say out of all those different experiences in those disciplines that really lit you up and was like one of your most memorable experiences?
Wow. pretty much every Western states that I've run or volunteered at or directed have been memorable. Every one of them has added to my experiences. But the first Western states, when you run that first Western states, there's really nothing else like that. You don't know what it's going to be like. You're standing at the Itzquah Valley or Olympic Valley, and you don't really know what it's going to be like. And for me, it was my second 100-miler, so I had gone the distance, but the elevation. I got to Devil's Thumb climb, and it was just totally kicking my butt. And I thought, holy cow, I'm going to have to drop out at Devil's Thumb. Right? And of course, that wasn't the case. I didn't have to drop out. They revived me with popsicles and soup and whatnot, and I managed to get to Auburn. But yeah, that first one is probably the most special, and you can't duplicate that.
So, Craig, what was your first 100-miler since Western States wasn't your first?
Well, it was a lot easier to get into Western States back in 2000. So I wanted to take away some of the variables, and I chose to run Arkansas Traveler. It was not hot, it wasn't hilly, but it was 100 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that in 2000, and then I ran my first Western States. It was my second 100-miler in 2001.
Okay, 2001. Okay.
Almost 20 years ago now. Jeez,
wow,
that's
excellent.
a long time.
Do you recall your time on that first one?
Of course.
2020.
Yeah, you don't forget your Western States times. Even the not good ones, you remember those too. So. Or I do. Yeah, 2020.
Very nice. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, off of your bio on your blog, your best time was somewhere in the 18s. Is that right?
Yeah, I had a couple in the 18s, 2004 and 2005. It was the Starfire course, so arguably it was a little bit easier. Duncan Canyon was not on the course, so we got to Red Star Ridge and we ran down the road to Robinson Flat. But yeah, they were still in the 18s.
And I don't know if it was the same as it is now, but back then, I mean, you said it was easier to get in then. Did they have the top 10 like auto entry into the next year, or was that not even necessary at that time?
Oh yeah, top 10. It was around as long as I've known. And back then, you could be guaranteed to get top 10 if you ran 18:30 for a man. The women's times fluctuated a little bit more, but you could actually target a time and get in and get the top 10.
Nice.
Now, now you got to run under 16 hours this last year to get in the top 10. A little bit different game.
For sure.
But yeah, that was my goal for at least the first 6 or 7 or 8 Western states, was to try to get in the top 10.
Yeah, and I mean,
that I could get back.
And you had a really great record of the top 20. I mean, for many years it looked like, as I was looking.
Yeah. Again, it wasn't as deep as it is now. So, 20 hours, 19 hours, 18 hours, you could get in the top 20. Now it's a little bit harder.
A little bit.
You run 20 hours now, you're going to be 50 or 60 or something, maybe even farther back.
So going back in time, I guess a little further, one of the things I was interested in knowing, and this is just something I like to find out about runners in general, because I came into running really kind of late in life, in my late 40s, really, and now in my early 50s. And you started early. I mean, you were running like in high school, middle school, I guess it looks like. And was that something that you were kind of modeling somebody in your family? Were you coming from like a sports oriented family, or what kind of got you into that?
My parents were not runners. Neither of them were runners, but they were athletes. My mom played volleyball and tennis, but I started in 7th grade. I went out for track and I ran the 100-meter dash, and I was last place. And the coach said, maybe you should try the mile. So I tried the mile, and I was a little more successful at the mile. And I ran in high school. I was pretty good at a small school in Golden Sierra. And then, I started running road races and tried the marathon thing for quite a few years, obsessing over minutes, single digit minutes and seconds. And I just got so tired of that. But back then it seemed like it was 100 milers, especially Western States was an older person sport. So I didn't rush right into Western States. I didn't run Western States until I was 37 years old, I think. In retrospect, I kind of wished I had started earlier. Now that people are starting in their 20s, I kind of wish I had started earlier, but I didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of the same with me. I mean, I was so preoccupied with racing my bike for so many years. I never even understood this whole running thing, and especially trail running. So
well, I was volunteering at Dusty Corners. I'd volunteered at Dusty Corners for 10 years before I ran the race. So I knew about it. I trained with people. I ran with Bruce von Borstel. It's a name some people might remember. He was a top 10 Western States guy. So I was around it. But I thought, no, I gotta get all my fast running in now before I run really slow at 100 miles. And so I had been around. I was exposed to it. Didn't have that as an excuse.
So Craig, I got a question for you. We're reading your bio to gain a little bit more information about you, even though there's a lot of stuff out there. We've known you for several years, and we were reading that when you were at UFO, you felt that you were over your head when it came to running. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, Golden Sierra is pretty small pond. I was a big fish in a small pond, but I had the goal, the dream of running at the University of Oregon. And I got there in 82, 83, that first year. And it was at Alberto Salazar time, Rudy Chapa. It was a really powerful time for University of Oregon. And went out for the first cross-country practice, and there were probably 50 of us. And I was in the third group and at the tail end of the third group. And back then, I don't know if it's like this now, but they didn't really need to develop runners at that time at the University of Oregon. People came. I remember going into Bill Dellinger, the head coach's office, with this 2-mile state champion from Idaho. He was like a 9:17 or 9:20 something walk on. I was a 9:46 2-miler, and this guy didn't even get his attention. Right? Basically, he said, "When you can do these workouts, then you can come back and talk to us." So if I had gone to a smaller school, I might have stayed in the track and cross country program, but there was no way I was going to make it at that level. I wasn't that good, and I was never going to be that good. So yeah, I was in over my head. And then I met my wife, and we did all kinds of other stuff other than running.
Perfect. So it's so what do you do after you finish college? It seems like you took a few years off. Do you take on new sports? What did you do at that point in your life?
Well, I came back to running when we moved to Arizona after got my master's degree. We moved to Tempe, Arizona, and I worked at Scottsdale in a cubicle. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not going to work for me. Sitting in a cubicle was not really going to work. I got to do some really incredible things with some very, very smart people. But it wasn't, I don't know, the work wasn't really doing it for me. So I went part-time, and I started training hard for the roads, the 10K and the marathon.
And out of curiosity, what were you doing for work before somewhat running became or running became part of your career?
I was working right out of school. I worked for Motorola in a defense-related contract. artificial intelligence stuff. Pretty boring now, but yeah. And then I eventually moved back to Eugene, where I graduated from school, and worked at the University of Oregon as a software or a system administrator. So part time at a school, at a university, in a university town was much more fitting for me.
And so that kind of allowed you to get back more into like the road side of things and start training?
Yeah, I kind of alternated between, when I moved back to Oregon, I really got into rock climbing hard again. So I would alternate between running really obsessively and then rock climbing obsessively. And then I'd come back. So.
And I mean, I would assume that those things kind of complemented each other to some degree?
No, not at all.
No.
No. I mean, you hear all that stuff like, oh yeah, this is good. This is good for this sport. No, if you want to do something hard, if you want to do something really well, it's going to take all your time, right? When you're running on trails, your toes are beat up. You can't squeeze them into climbing shoes. It just don't want to go there.
True.
And running makes you tired for climbing. And maybe if I did it at moderate levels, it might have worked. It might have been complimentary, but not when you're trying to run or climb really hard. It's just no. I'm a little bit more of a balanced athlete now than I used to be. I used to be just so obsessive with it, whatever I was into.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember from my bike racing days. I mean, this was well before cross training was even a thing. And they would just tell us, if you want to get better on the bike, you just ride the bike. Like, don't do weights, don't do, core work. You just ride the bike. That was it. Morning, noon, night.
Yeah. It might not be the best for you long-term to last for a long time.
Yeah.
In your 50s and 60s, but it definitely is how you get better at a sport is you do that sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've talked about, some of your memorable experiences, and it sounds like that first Western States was like right up there for you. Do you have like a second tier, anything in the recent past maybe, or something to do with rock climbing or anything like that?
Well, I should tell the story of how I discovered Western States.
Yeah.
And it's not completely unique. I thought it was unique, but Bill Rose has a similar story, if you know Bill Rose. So in 1977, my mom and stepdad moved us from the Bay Area to Auburn Lake Trails. And my brother and I just loved the canyon. We would go down to the river all the time. We'd spend as many hours as we could screwing around in the canyon. So we're camping at Hoboken Creek, which is the first creek you cross if you're going in course direction after Green Gate before Auburn Lake Trails. There's two creeks, Hoboken Creek and American Canyon. We're camping where the concrete is. Some of you may remember or recognize it by that. So we're camping just right on the trail on a summer night. And a runner comes through all dirty as can be, asks us where the aid station is, and we had no idea what he was talking about. And then somebody else comes by, and we finally discovered, holy cow, these people had started in Squaw Valley, and we're headed to Auburn. And it was very memorable for my brother and I, because we were both captured by the look in their eye. If most people who've run have seen what it looks like in your eyes at 85 miles. And they were dirty as heck. But whatever they had experienced, I knew I wanted to experience what they had experienced, just the fatigue and the I don't know, they were definitely driven. And that was 1978. So that's how I discovered it. It was a total accident. And we didn't get much sleep that night.
So 1978 was the first year of the official Western States race. Is that correct?
I think 77 was the first official year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it was very early on.
Okay. So there were not any horses with the runners. It was just runners.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's and where in the Bay Area do you live before moving to school?
We lived in San Jose and Santa Clara. Moved around quite a bit down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
The South Bay.
Yeah. Cool was a lot better place to live. as a young kid. Oh, who wanted to be outdoors, wanted to run on trails. Yeah, we loved it. The river was so fun. The river's still fun. The canyons are still fun. And at the time, still in the 70s, there was the potential of the Auburn Dam going in. So that would have gone away. It was starting to not look like it was going to happen, but there was still the possibility that was going to, the dam was going to flood all the trails and the canyons.
Were there like actual, like grassroots organization against that, like in the general area, people that lived in the area or anything that you remember?
I don't remember that. I was young. I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't remember that stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't politically aware.
No.
It was going to make the drive to Auburn easier. That I heard that argument a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. You get a bridge over there or something like that.
Yeah. Well, you go right over the top.
Sure.
So, right. That's why the Forest Hill Bridge is there.
Yeah.
So if you get to Forest Hill,
right.
If you get to the Georgetown Divide, you were going to go right over the dam.
Right.
So, but no, I wasn't politically aware back then.
No. Well, we're pretty happy it didn't happen, I guess.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
I keep hearing rumblings every now and then that it's still not completely dead, but at this point, I would hope it would be.
Yeah, it seems pretty costly, and I don't know. I doubt it's going to happen, but who knows?
So, I mean, when you saw those runners going by you and you're camping out on the trail, I mean, and you it sounds like you were just inspired by their drive, their motivation. Is that something that you had like pretty much your whole life, or that you can remember, and it just kind of amped it up even more? Or like, yeah, I'm just trying to get to like, what is it that drives you, like from the inside to any of these things?
I don't know that's an interesting question. I don't know when I really discovered that in myself. It might have been a little later in life. High school, did some strange backpacking experiences, and where I got in some pretty rough spots. And I thrived on adversity, right? So I think it happened later. I don't remember if I was aware of that, or if it happened earlier, if I was born with it, or if it just kind of developed. But.
And like, I mean, obviously running, it's a fairly solo sport, I mean, you're out there, especially trail running, you're kind of on your own. Maybe you're linking up with some other runner, or you have a pacer at some point, but it's a lot of just kind of internal mental, endurance, physical endurance, obviously. I'm just wondering, like in my experience, I was not really a team sport player early in life. And so I got into bike racing because it was something I could just jump on my bike and go. And then eventually running, I can just go out my door and run. Like, did you ever have team experience, like team sports experience or anything like that? Or were you all always kind of more like a solo athlete?
No, I was definitely a team sport athlete. I was basketball.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to play football, but I didn't like the hitting part. And that was kind of an important thing. You needed to like to hit heads with other football players. I didn't like that part. But yeah, definitely basketball. And I really haven't been that much of a solo runner. I have had groups that I've trained with my whole life, or other people. I am not a solo trainer. I don't go out there and grind. I never do 50 milers by myself. I seldom do any long run by myself, or workouts. I don't do those by myself. So it's been a social, not necessarily a team sport, but it's definitely been a social sport for me.
Well, that's great. And I mean, that really speaks to kind of the reason we're doing this interview series, is because a lot of us like that aspect of running, and we go out, we have our weekly run groups, and we're going to go out and tackle these climbs or go in the canyon or do whatever. And we get all that kind of talk time too, which is really valuable, I think, for people just in general. And, we're sort of missing that right now. So that's why, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So Craig, I have, going back to the whole Western States experience. So you have 9 Western States finishes so far. Okay. And you've got times anywhere between, 18 change to being a 29-hour finish. And you and I,
Go there.
Yes. And you and I actually ran together in 2017, and we experienced some of those first 30 miles. Like I remember that we ran into each other, I don't know, somewhere around mile 10, 15. And I remember Camille was right in front of us, and you were next to me, and I was getting lost because I couldn't follow the snow because it was everywhere. And that year, it's as a for everybody else watching, my goal for that year as a joke, because it was a joke, it was to beat Craig Thornley's best time. That was my goal for that year, right? It's and I know that your goal for that year was to get sub 24, but unfortunately the day was a lot more difficult for everybody than any of us could have expected. So how did you feel about having been an 18-hour runner to a 29-hour runner? How do you assimilate all of that? It's and this is kind of a compound question. With back in 2005, you also finished 10th at Western States, but you didn't come back in 2006. Um, I mean, if I ever finish within top 10, I am using that spot. It's by any means. So if you can share that with us, will be great.
So let me answer the last part first.
Mhm.
So in 2005, I had PR'd for the fourth year in a row. I got faster each year. And I thought I could run in the 17s.
Okay.
And my training was going awesome. I ran the ice cream sandwich run, which is Cal 2 to the swinging bridge and back, which you can't do anymore because Cal 2 access is off. But that was my last hard effort. Or maybe I did one more 50 mile. Maybe I did the Memorial Weekend 50 miler from Robinson to the river.
Mhm.
And I was on my massage therapist table, and I told him, yeah, I'm going to go to Boise, Idaho, and run Schaefer Butte 50 miler. And he said, Craig, you probably should shut it down. You've already done all the training that you need to do. So I'm running Schaefer Butte. I drive over to Idaho from Oregon, and somewhere coming back around mile 30 or so, tibialis anterior just said, nope, you're done. This was 20 days before the 2006 Western States. So I rehabbed like hell. I tried every modality, including this acupuncture with electricity and everybody in the room holding hands and the energy. I mean, I tried every damn thing, and I just couldn't quite get it rehabbed. So I had to watch my brother run his only Western States. I had to watch him and everybody else leave. Squaw Valley was pretty hard. Watch everybody leave. Once everybody left, once the race was going on, it was okay. Okay, I'm fine. I get to watch. It's kind of fun to watch. Got to see the Brian Morrison stuff at the end.
Yep.
Which if I was running, I wouldn't have been able to see that. So I was trying, Paolo. I was definitely trying to get in 2006. That year was a very hot year. I probably wouldn't have run in the 17s.
Yeah.
I think 18 hours was the winning time for Cooper, for Graham, because Brian was disqualified.
Yeah. So so that was a completely knowledge on my part, because I figured that you had just somewhat forfeited your entry, but sounds like it's just life happened.
I ran too much. So the first part of your question, though, running 29 hours, I was overjoyed to finish, and finishing in the 29 to 30 hour range was really fun. The party in Auburn, the 99 mile party, was by far the best I'd ever experienced. When you finish at 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning, there's not a whole lot going on there. They're already drunk and they're passed out, but in the morning, when you finish it, you run through the neighborhood here at 10 a.m. It's happening. It was awesome. Yeah, I was running the race as a race director was a little bit harder than I had anticipated. And it wasn't so much the race day, the conditions that were hard. It was the 2 weeks out and 1 week out because of all that snow. The course was just, it required so much effort, and I didn't even get to really prepare my head and my body the week before. So I was really happy that I finished. It was a long. I did a lot of suffering that day, but I'm totally proud of that finish. Would I have liked to run under 24? Absolutely, but I have no problem. I know several people who've told me they don't want to be involved in the sport if they're not as good as they used to be. And I don't have that problem. I don't have that to do at all. I'll take another 29-hour finish if that's what number 10 is. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So along with what you're saying, I just want to make a point and share a message to everybody that you don't have to be running to be part of the running community. You just have to be active, right? It's many of you guys have not even seen me ever run a race because I've been a bit busy the last couple of years. But that doesn't mean that you cannot be part of the running community. And that's a big point that I always try to make when people come into the store and they tell me that they're injured and yeah, you know what, you won't see me for a while because I'm injured. It's like, no, if you're injured, there's many things we can do. We can, stay active by doing trail work or volunteer at a race. But you don't necessarily need to be running to be a member of the running community. And that's just, a big message that I always try to share with everybody. Yeah. So yeah, I can't even imagine finishing at 29 hours. It's I applaud everybody that is in the golden hour because it is hard, regardless however fast you are. It's hard. It's a difficult day. One comment with finishing at 2 a.m. is when I run UTMB and I was going through by the finish line. We're heading towards the finish line and I'm running with the buddy of mine, Bill Clements, and we're coming down this just gnarly downhill, 3 miles straight down to Chamonix, and we can see the finish line. And he asked me, "Oh, do you think anybody is down there?" And my response was, "Have you ever seen a picture of UTMB finish without people at the finish line?" Right? He's like, "No." I was like, "Hey, it's gonna be packed when we make the turn around Chamonix and we come through the finish line."
Nobody there.
Nobody there.
Yeah.
Nobody there. I mean, there was we had to wake up the photographer. It's so after finishing, we went back to our little apartment that we had. It's and we took a nap. Then we came back to the finish line to watch the last finishers, and it was a party. That the 40-hour to 44-hour finish time, it was a party. Bill and I were like, "What if we run back to the place and put our bibs on, right? So we can experience this." Right? But yes, you're totally right. I can't even imagine. It must be, it's a great experience and just so uplifting to come through the finish line at that time.
Yeah, and I will tell you, 40 hours or 41 hours at UTMB, it's really rocking.
That's about what your time was, wasn't it?
Yeah, I ran hard to break 41 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was rocking. The town was, oh God, it was awesome.
So speaking of UTMB, I mean, I know you did CCC the prior year to kind of, I'm assuming, prepare yourself, get a sense of it, and then you got into UTMB and you did that. Is that sort of what you were thinking? Like, I want to sort of start smaller, progress to UTMB, and what was the idea there?
I don't really remember why I did CCC first at this point. Yeah, I wanted to experience the European racing scene. So I do remember people telling me, yeah, if you do CCC, you'll see the best parts of the course and you don't need to you don't need to run the full 105 miles, which starts at 6 p.m. and you run in the dark, right?
Mm.
Well, CCC was a lot in the dark for me. I ran a whole night, and so all these beautiful spots, it's like it was dark. And I also remember looking at my Strava track, and it only went partway around the mountain, 2/3. This is not right. And you need to go all the way around the thing. So I came back to do the whole thing, run, and get a proper Strava track all the way around the mountain.
And I should have set that up. There was just a chat real quick to just describe what is CCC, what is UTMB.
So CCC, they're all acronyms. They're part of the Ultra Tour de Mont Blanc World Celebration of Ultra Running, the World Summit of Ultra Running. CCC is Courmayeur, Champex-Lac, Chamonix. It's 100K. UTMB is the full 105 mile. TDS, I don't know what the 3 towns are, TDS, but that's a 74 to 78 mile thing now. And then PTL, which was what I was going to do, is, I don't know what those stand for either, but that's the 300 kilometer trip around the mountain without course markings, and it's a team thing and much higher through glaciers and stuff.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about that. I mean, you're signed up for that. You've got a team of how many people?
There's 3 of us.
Okay, and so are those local people right now?
Joe is local. Joe Steinmetz, our ham radio coordinator at Western States, and my brother, who is in Flagstaff, and he's the river czar. He does the rafting and the cable crossing at Western States.
Perfect.
Oh, we pulled out. We pulled out a while ago. We didn't want to travel to Europe.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
We're waiting for them to cancel. They'll probably cancel. Maybe they're watching. Somebody's watching right now.
Yeah, I was just checking their website last night because I knew I'd known by talking to you that you were signed up for it. So I checked their website last night, and I think the most recent update is no plan to change the date, no plan to cancel. But of course, it's 5 months. You can't really tell what's going to happen. So one of my questions was going to be, like how, and it's a moot point now, but how do you sort of maintain your motivation to train for something that could potentially be canceled, in the next couple of months or something?
It was definitely hard to stay motivated, especially after Western States, after we canceled. It was pretty hard for me and all my managers and the key leaders. It's demoralizing, right? This is what we do. We work all year long to put on a race. So to have that not happen, it sucked. But we had heard that PTL was probably the first event that wasn't going to happen of all their suite of races. So I suspect it's going to be canceled here on May 20th.
Oh, is that? Yeah, is that the deadline they've sort of?
I hope nobody at UTMB is listening to me right now, but yeah, I bet on May 20th it's going to be canceled.
Interesting. Yeah, so I guess just sort of shifting gears a little bit, and we do want to leave a little bit of time here and be mindful. We have a few questions from the audience that we'll get to. I figure we'll probably wrap this up around by 8, if that's good with everybody. Just a couple more questions from our end, and I just wanted to sort of touch a little bit on your race directing experience, with Western States. And I mean, I guess the biggest, impact issue right now was the cancellation, and I guess one thing I'm interested in knowing, I haven't really heard too much about, is just sort of what a whole interplay is with the board and with you and, with current events and how things kind of move through the process when you sort of either are developing a policy or have to respond to some kind of market condition or worldwide condition or something along those lines.
Yeah, so we don't meet with the whole board. Most of the hard work doesn't happen with the whole board. There's too many people, so we have committees or the executive committee. With this COVID situation, it was probably 4 of us that were really talking all the time, and every day it was like 2 weeks had passed. Right? Things had changed so fast in March. But as we got closer to the cancellation, then we had meetings once a week, and we would all talk. It was mostly updating the whole board so everybody was informed. When we finally did make the decision, the board voted on it. The board had the final say, but they weren't necessarily doing all of the everyday conversations. It was a smaller group of people, but in general, that's how this board works. Is we have lots of committees, and those committees are made up of people with diverse opinions, and hopefully the hard arguments are made in a smaller group of people instead of trying to bring a topic to the general board, which we have 15 board members, and I'm not on the board, but there's I'm the I'm like the executive director of the board, and yeah, it's when we bring topics to the meetings, hopefully they've already been vetted and the committees make a recommendation. Sometimes it takes a little bit of arguing at the board meetings, but hopefully all the hard questions have been answered or debated, and the committee comes and says, this is what we recommend, and then the board votes on it. That's generally the way it works now, and it's efficient. Obviously, if I was just a dictator and I got to make the decisions, it could be quicker, but I sure as heck wouldn't make the same decisions, because the talent, the expertise, the historical knowledge of this board is just absolutely mind-blowing. It continues to blow me away how many awesome people we have on this board. I talk to a board member every single day. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't talk to a board member. Different ones, but every day.
Yeah.
So.
And like you said, I mean, it sounds like just a diverse pool of knowledge, talent, opinions, so it sounds like when you need to make a hard decision, you're going to get a good decision out of that, I would expect, because it's so diverse.
Yeah, and we don't rush into decisions. We try not to react based on public pressure, or we try to deliberate. So when we do make a decision, it's very well thought out.
Yeah, and I can only imagine over the last decade, just the amount of pressure given social media and just news cycles and everything else just amping up on you, and having to sort of, I'm guessing, kind of push that aside as much as you can.
Yeah, well, I can't always push it aside. You got to address it. You got to face it. But yeah, sometimes I wish it would just go away. Yeah, but yeah.
Hey, I've got moving forward, it's in. I wish we could stay chatting for a longer period of time. It's but I've got a couple of questions in regards of your future running with Western States, because as you mentioned, it was a little bit difficult to run Western States as a race director. You've got 9 finishes, and I'm sure that you want to get back to your 10th finish, which is that 1,000-mile buckle, right? And I know that that's a goal with most runners that continue to work their way up to their 10th Western States. So, do you think you're gonna get back anytime soon? Let's imagine that we're not shelter in place and Western States is happening. It's under normal circumstances. Do you see yourself trying to get back into it, and where do you see yourself going from that point on? Do you want to get your 11th after that, or would you be pretty much done?
Well, like most of us, when we finish a 100-miler, we don't really think we're going to do another one because it's just so painful. Like, oh God. But with time, you forget how hard it was or how uncomfortable you were. So I think it's probably 2017 is probably far enough away that I probably think, oh yeah, I can do this again. How hard can it be? Be the race director and run the race. I thought that the symmetry of running my 10th Western States when I directed my 10th Western States would be kind of cool. Numbers guy, that would be 2022.
Okay.
But I have also thought maybe I should wait until I'm retired. But then my wife reminds me, you're going to be a hell of a lot older, and it's going to be harder for you when you try to do this when you're retired. So I don't know. I do want to get my 10th, but I won't go past 10. I don't want to take a spot past 10. I had actually already trained for 10 full Western States. Well, now it's 11. 2006, as I told you, I got hurt 20 days before the race. I've done training all the way up to tapering. And then 2008, when we got canceled for the first time ever because of the fires and smoke, I was at squaw ready to go. So I had gone through 10 training cycles and I got 8 finishes out of it. I wish I'd gotten it, but I'm not going for 11 no way. And I've been more interested lately in doing. My brother introduced me to someone last year at Javelina. I can't remember who he introduced me to, but he said, this is my brother Craig. He used to be fast. Now he just gets it done. So I'm kind of in that mode now where I wanted to do PTL and I did UTMB and CCC, and I wasn't fast, but I get it done. So I think I may try some more obscure, weird events. I don't know if I'm going to do a 200 miler, but it could be in there because you don't have to be fast, right? You can go really slow for a 200 miler.
You just have to get it done.
You just got to get it done.
Yes.
And I'm kind of getting back into climbing pretty hard again right now. So I got some climbing goals.
And lastly, before we go into the questions, into the Q&A, do you foresee the opportunity to expanding the number of slots for Western States in any possible way?
Not significantly, no.
Okay.
We thought we had a few spots. We thought we had 40 spots more that we were going to get.
That's 10%. Yeah, it's more than
and we tried hard. We tried really hard, and then it was recommended that we didn't continue pursuing it. Because of pressure from groups that don't want to see anybody using wilderness areas for solo experiences. They don't want to organize events in wilderness areas. So those groups, they make it hard to expand, well, even to get grandfathered in. If you have a race or an event that goes through an area that becomes wilderness, it's really challenging to get grandfathered in to try to increase the numbers after wilderness area is created. It's never happened as far as we know. So to change it without going through the wilderness area, there are some options. They're not really good options. If we go to the north side of Granite Chief, we're on the north side of a side hill, and that's going to hold the snow. It would be not good in a lot of years. It'd be really treacherous.
So basically, it wouldn't be a sustainable decision for a long term.
It would be hard to go around Granite Chief Wilderness. Yeah, we definitely have looked at it. If we get kicked out of Granite Chief, we will still have Western States. We will find a way around it. But
okay. Well, thank you for giving us that information. Now that I touch into, a little bit of a subject that everybody's curious, but not everybody usually either asks a question or has a way to get there. But we're gonna move to the Q&A section, and I know that our minion Greg Larkin, our minion Mike Turner, has a few people on the queue. So Mike, if you want to go ahead and move the first person to ask a question, go ahead.
Okay, tonight, Adam Peterson, you got a question. Your mic is on. Oh, hey there. Hey, Craig. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Adam. Good to see you.
Hey, I miss all y'all. Was just down below No Hands an hour ago. Hey, Craig, I'm wondering, what is the craziest animal encounter you've had on the trails?
Oh, wow. I've had several bear encounters. I've had one of the crazy animals that I did not expect to be a problem. I was on Cal Street and I saw a fox on the trail, and I thought, it's tiny. It's smaller than a coyote. You know, it's tiny. And I stopped and I tried to get it to move, and it wouldn't move. So I eventually got it to go down the trail, and it would just stop and look back at me. And this lasted, it seemed like a long time. It was probably 10 minutes, but it seemed like it was an hour or so. And I finally decided I was just going to run around get off the trail and run around it. And then it snaps at me. Like, that was freaking crazy. But the craziest non-running story, but Western States animal story, some of you have heard this story from my friend Scott Wolf, aka Monkey Boy. I drive around on race day and try to hit the aid stations. I was at Lion Ridge and then Red Star Ridge. We're driving on the 96 road, and on race day, I am just amped up, and I'm thinking about the race, and oh my God, is it all going to work? Did I forget something? So my mind is just totally consumed with the race, and I'm driving pretty fast on the road. And if you've ever driven on the 96 road from Red Star towards French Meadows, it's a very dense forested area, and there's a deer in the road, and we stop, and the deer gives birth right in front of us. And as Monkey Boy says, it's got the little shower cap on. It just gave birth to its little baby deer. And the mama went away because we scared it, and finally the mom came and licked it, and it moved and it got off the trail, and Monkey Boy and I are like, what did we just see? We saw a live birth during Western States. That was the craziest thing. The miracle of childbirth right in front of us.
That's crazy. Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
And next question is from Cody Holiday over there.
Well, just want to shout out to a fellow Golden Sierra alumni.
Hey, when did you graduate?
1998. My question is, as far as being involved as a race director, what's been your biggest, oh crap moment on race day where you were just like, what the heck, what are we going to do type situation?
Well, 2016, when Mr. Walmsley missed the turn, that was pretty crappy. That was a pretty crappy decision. Like, where is he? We didn't know that he had missed the turn up to the upper quarry. And then when he was found on Highway 49 at the lower quarry, and we got word that, oh my God, he's there. So what the hell did we do at that point? Right? I sent teams. We had 3 teams go to that intersection and mark the living hell out of it. Right? So no one could miss it going forward, which made it look like we admitted that it was not marked properly, which was not the case at all. But I had said to these teams, make sure nobody else misses that turn. That was not a fun. That was probably the most memorable. Oh shit! And the guy's leading the race, and the whole world's watching, the freaking biggest race in the country, at least. And the lead runner goes off course. Not a good feeling.
Thanks.
Next question is from Jesse Ellis on Facebook Live watching. We got a big crowd. It's Facebook Live. Jesse wants to know, what's your biggest advice for keeping your focus on your fitness goals during very busy times of your life?
Wow. For me, my training, my exercise is always the highest priority for me. So I really don't have problems with that. I exercise every single day. I take the time. I make sure I take the time to exercise every single day. I don't know if that's not your priority. I don't know how you switch that, but make exercise, make training your highest freaking priority. Even your job. I don't know if you can say this. I don't have kids, so maybe you can't say that with kids, but yeah, you just got to make it a priority, Jesse. And be disciplined that I'm going to exercise. I'm going to find the time to exercise. I've never had to run before work in the morning. It's 6 a.m. I've never been forced to have to run that. So maybe I'm not the right guy to ask if you're in that situation. But yeah, make training your priority.
So I got a question within that question. Would you say that training is specific to, hey, I need to go for a run, but for some reason I couldn't go for a run? Can I substitute that with anything else? Like in my case, for example, my property is very hilly, and I recently built a deck, and I realized I turned on my Chorus watch while doing that. Shout out to Chorus.
Got a plug for Chorus?
It's and I've gained over 800 feet just going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So, do you do anything like that?
Not really, but I do other stuff. If my only hour of exercise is going to be a flow yoga session, then yeah, I'll consider that. I'll take the time to do that. Sometimes it's hard to concentrate if there's a lot of stuff going on in the head. But yeah, I'll walk or hike, or I'll go out, and I got the canyon right out my back door, so it's pretty easy to get out, even for a walk down to the river and back up.
Awesome. Okay.
And the next question is from Jessica Harris, hanging out there. Jessica, go ahead.
Hi. Hey, Craig.
Hi, hey, there you are. Hi.
So my question is, we see you from the beginning of Western States all the way to the awards, and you are happy and positive. Do you sleep during race day?
I usually get about an hour or 2 hours of sleep. Unfortunately, I slept one year when Megan finished. My friend Megan lost. So sometimes I don't sleep at the most opportune time. But yeah, it's not. I mean, we work all year to put on the race, right? I'm gonna stay awake. I'm pumped up. As long as my body will stand upright, I'm gonna be awake. I absolutely love watching people finish, and I love watching the whole race progress. And
Awesome.
And the golden hour is incredible. There's a little bit of a lull sometimes at the award ceremony. It gets pretty hard when it's hot and I'm standing out shaking people's hands, and sometimes I get, oh boy, I may pass out here because it's so hot. I'm tired. I'm dehydrated. But hell, the runners had run 100 miles, and I just drove around, and I didn't have anywhere near the effort. I didn't put out anywhere near the effort that the runners did. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last question is from John Becker. He has a question about eliminating easy qualifiers. John, are you there?
I'm here. So my question is looking at the qualifier list, is that there are some hundreds that are extremely fast that are on the qualifier list. And they don't compare to some of the states, and I know that all don't because it's against, all across the country. And I know that races have been removed as it's become more popular, but it seems like, to me, my fourth year percentage was almost worse than my second year trying to get into states. Are we going to do, or is there going to be, I know there's reviews, but I think Tunnel Hill was added back in as a qualifier for 21. And to me, that's just a straight out flat, fast course. Is it just going to be based on the volume of the people that come to that race? Or is it going to be based on something that's kind of equal to states in itself, instead of making a fast? The Indiana 100 is another one, and I can name some others.
it's a fair question, and I think you need to look at what is the purpose of running a qualifier. We have really high finish rates lately, upwards of 86%. So if we're using the qualifier to indicate whether a runner can finish Western States, I think we're doing okay in that. If we're using the qualifier to limit the number of people who can get in to the lottery, then we could definitely remove races like that and make it harder. And we are examining this. We're constantly looking at this. One possibility to address your comment about having a lower percentage chance of getting in through the lottery on a year subsequent year. We may change the multiplier from 2 to the n-1 to something like a 3 to the n-1 or some fractional 2.5 to the n-1, so that your chances will improve significantly, more significantly than they do now in subsequent years. But all those are the limiting the number of qualifiers is definitely a way to decrease the number of applicants. But if the purpose of the qualifier is just to determine whether you can run 100 miles or not, we don't seem to be having a problem with that. I think we're vetting folks who, we're eliminating folks who can't run 100 miles. So it's a fair question. And Tunnel Hill is definitely one of the easiest 100 milers on our qualifying list. I can't argue that. But we will continue to. I think you'll see changes in the next 1 or 2 lotteries that will address these issues.
I appreciate it. It's just a concern. Like I said, I mean, my 4th year was, I think, worse than my 2nd year. And in a lottery, I understand that the growth of Western States and the popularity of itself, but to me, your 4th year should not be worse than your 2nd. And I'm not been doing this for long, but again, I was like, wow, just looking at the numbers. And
I wish I could share my inbox of race from the emails I get from race directors who want their race to be a qualifier. It is unbelievable. People want their race, and they'll say, well, there's no race near me to qualify at, so I need to have this thing be a qualifier. So we're constantly battling that too. We want to make sure everybody has a race fairly close to them, so they don't have to travel to another state or to another country to run a qualifier. So it's, we try to take everybody's perspective when we make decisions like that. But it's a valid point. I can't argue that Tunnel Hill is not an easy qualifier.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that was it for our audience Q&A. So I guess we're just going to wrap up here. Craig, I just really want to thank you so much for just taking the time coming on. This is our first live interview session. We kind of just came up with this idea within the last week and a half, I think, and just threw it together. We've just had some great feedback tonight, some just real great interest, I think. We've got people on Facebook watching, so I think total we peaked at around 50 people here. Can't complain about that at all. So thanks so much for sharing your insights and your information. I think it was really valuable.
Yeah, thank you guys for doing this. This is really fun, and I've watched the chat room going while we're here. So
yeah,
wow, there's a lot of action there, and some interesting questions. I know people wanted to talk about some other stuff, but another time, another venue, we'll address some of those other issues.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Paulo, if you want to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Craig,
just let me plug in one more thing, just to say, hey, thanks again to Mike Turner in the background there, just fielding all the questions and taking care of all the behind the scenes stuff for us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg and Mike and Craig. This has definitely been a great opportunity to share time with you guys. We are at a point in our lives that none of us had ever been trained on or experienced or been educated on, and I think we are doing a fantastic job as a pandemic survivors. It is a reality that has been upon us, has been put upon us, and there's nothing we can do about this. That being said, we miss you all, and we hope to get together and join trails in the very near future. Um, that being said, if you guys can visit our website, auburnaidsstation.com. It's if you guys need anything for running and you don't find it there, please let me know. Send me a message. We got a lot of other products that are not on our website, and I try every day to keep uploading new products and also keep our inventory accurate. And Craig, once again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and your life to spend it with us. And thank you for taking the time away from your cats, because I know that's very important for you. It's once again, thank you all. Be safe. Wash your hands. Common sense goes a long way. Okay.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.